Hey, what's up, Street Talks? The Eric from the Eric Street Photography blog. So today I'm going to do, just a review on the new Fujifilm X100T. All right. So yeah, just personal disclaimer: Fujifilm in Fujifilm Middle East. My buddy Yuta-san gave me this Fujifilm X100T for free for me to keep. I'm not getting paid to do this review, and I'm gonna try my best to give this as non-biased a review as I can. But of course, company gives you a free camera. You're bound to say nicer things about it than if I only spend my own money on it. But I've shot with a lot of different cameras, and yeah, I'll just give you my honest review of the camera. So first of all, the X100T, it's a pretty, I guess in some ways minor upgrade to the X100S, but at the same time a pretty substantial upgrade in my opinion. I think first of all, what I really like about the camera is that I feel like it's finally the time where the X100T doesn't really have any huge downsides anymore. I mean, the previous X100S still a little bit slow autofocus, and the XT1 was faster. And there's issues with the X100S, the dials being really easy to knock around, and all these other small little details. For example, uh, the LCD screen not being as big, the menus being too complicated, blah blah blah. But yeah, the biggest things that they changed with X100T. First of all, if you look at the dials, they're actually quite stiff now. So one of the issues that the X100S and the X100, the original one, had was that it was very easy to bump around these the exposure comp button, but now it's quite stiff and there's a nice texture to it. So thank you Fujifilm for fixing that. Another big one they've changed is the menus are a lot more simplified now. So let's see if I go to the menu. There's a lot fewer options in the menu now, which make this a godsend because I know in the original X100, I've never owned the original X100, but when I'd have students in my workshop, trying to figure out how to use the menu was the biggest pain in the ass ever. There's just way too much to look at, but now with the new X100T, much more simplified. Another big thing is you can notice here, all the buttons, they don't have any marks on them because they're all programmable now. So what you could do is if you go under the menu option, let's see, where do I do this? I think it's under here, select. Anyways, I don't really remember. I think it's here, yeah. So under function setting, you can now adjust all of these buttons to do what you want it to do. So for example, for my X100T, I actually have this top function button as ISO, and the top button here, I have this as macro mode. I use flash a lot, so left and right arrows turn flash, and the down button is autofocus and Wi-Fi functionality and stuff like that. Oh yeah, that's another big thing with X100T is that you actually have Wi-Fi built into it, like the X100T. So I know some photographers like to travel a lot. They'll just bring an iPad, and so it's a good way to link up your camera and your iPad or your smartphone, whatever, to quickly upload photos on the road. I personally like to let my photos marinate for a bit longer, but if you're into that, that's really cool. And also, if you have an Instax mini printer, it's a good way to sync up um, your camera, the X100, XT1, or the X100T to wirelessly print some photos and give them out as presents, which is really cool. Also, another big thing is the LCD screen's a lot bigger. It's a lot brighter. It doesn't hurt to have, and it's certainly quite a nice thing to do. Also, some of the buttons on the side have changed. So you got view mode up here now. You have view, and this Wi-Fi button is customizable. I think it just makes it a lot more streamlined. Also, the drive buttons here, autofocus settings on the side, the manual, continuous, single. This is a small cosmetic thing. This is actually quite nice. They've actually added a nice little new texture to the focusing ring. I think it's just nice aesthetically and it feels nice. personally, I never really use manual focus when it comes to the X100T. I just use autofocus. And speaking about autofocus, the autofocus on this camera is damn fast now. I mean, it's to a point where you can't really blame the camera for being too slow. Still, of course, if you're shooting low light, it's not like the fastest camera in the world. But all things considered, I'd give the autofocus in this camera like a pretty solid 9 out of 10. Whereas the X100S, I would have given it like a 7 or a 7.5. The XT1 having around an 8, maybe 8.5. And also the good thing about the X100T, because there's no shutter, the camera doesn't shake as much when you take a photo. Therefore, if you're shooting with this camera, you could shoot at slower shutter speeds and not have as much camera shake. The sensor is the same as XT1 and the X100S, I believe, and the high ISO capabilities are really good, meaning I've been able to shoot with this camera at 3200, 6400, no problem at all. Furthermore, there's some other, little bells and whistles like this new electronic, you know, hybrid rangefinder, and it's honestly pretty gimmicky. I don't think it's really necessary unless you have a manually focusing lens. So unless you have a Leica or a rangefinder, it's not really necessary. A new big thing too is that they've introduced something called Fuji Chrome. It's supposed to kind of be like a film simulation preset in the menu. I've shot with it and it looks nice, but I think for most purposes, I just recommend shooting raw and just processing your photos. You could either download my free presets or VSCO, VSCO. They make amazing film simulation looks. But if you like to shoot JPEG and don't want to worry about the colors, the Kodachrome, not the Kodachrome, the Fujichrome settings actually look pretty nice. And you know, I don't know what else there is to mention about new things with the camera. I mean, the camera it's solid. It's a fixed 35 millimeter focal length, so you can't take off the lens. But I think this is pretty much for most street photographers the ideal digital camera to have. This camera and the Ricoh GR, which I have sitting over here. These are probably, I think, the two best cameras for street photography if you're shooting digital on the market as of now. The GR is really good because compactable, also APS-C sensor. This is good for like most everyone else. And so if you have a big ass DSLR and you're tired to carry around all that shit, an X100T, definitely a huge bang for the buck. I think it's retailing around $1,300, so it's not a cheap camera. Also remember before you go out and just buy a new camera, a lot of psychological studies have shown that money spent in experiences is a lot better than money spent on physical things, aka cameras. So before you go out and spend $1,300 on a camera, whatever, $1,300 that could give you a nice round trip somewhere in the world. It could buy you a lot of good photo books. Let's see, I'm just like really bad at math. If I do the math, 1,300. Let's say a good photo book's about $50. That could buy you 26 really good photography books. It could get you a workshop, something educational, travel. If you just want to do a road trip across the states, you could probably do it in gas for like a few $100. And the $1,000,000 question is, if you already have a Fujifilm camera, is it worth the upgrade? So my suggestion, if you have the original X100, yes, I think it's worth the upgrade. If you have the X100S, I don't think it's really worth the money to upgrade. But if you have disposable income, you could always sell the X100S, get the X100T if you want the newest and greatest. If you have, I mentioned this in my review, and people are like, "Oh, you're so pretentious." If you already own a digital Leica, let's say an M9 or the new M240 or monochrome, I mean, come on, you already own a Leica. I wouldn't add more cameras to your life to complicate it. If you have a Ricoh GR, I mean, the GR is an amazing camera. If you really, really want a viewfinder, an optical finder, or an EVF here, then I recommend getting this, using this camera. Um, but yeah, I mean, I used it for about a week in Dubai. Really like the camera. I'm still at this point pretty committed to shooting film. I'm shooting, my daily carry-on camera is my Leica MP. But yeah, maybe down the line, if I'm going to shoot more digital, this is definitely the camera I'm going to use. Um, and yeah, for 95% of digital street photographers out there, I mean, it's pretty much I think the quote quote ideal camera to have. It's like the poor man's Leica, right? You're not gonna drop like 7 grand on the Leica and 3 grand on a lens if you're barely paying your rent. But I mean, just because you have an expensive camera doesn't mean you're a bad person. So if you could afford getting a digital Leica, you have the money. I mean, yeah, go for it. If you want good value, this is a solid camera to have. The way I shoot with it is generally keep the ISO really high, 3200, 1600. I just keep in P mode, which is just putting the camera to A mode in the front, auto aperture on the top, setter, point autofocus, and yeah, just click and shoot. I actually find myself shooting a lot with the EVF. Another thing is I think the new EVF is actually a lot better in terms of refresh rate. So I don't even bother with the optical viewfinder anymore because I actually like to shoot seeing all the edges of my frame. I know some people like the optical finder because you can see a little more of the scene. For me, I don't mind too much. I actually like the electronic viewfinder, and because I'm shooting black and white with this camera, I like being able to see in black and white as a preview. So yeah, essentially that's my review of the camera. A few minor upgrades. Definitely a solid camera. Highly recommend it. If I could give this camera a rating, I'd probably give it like a 9.5 out of 10. So Fujifilm's done a huge upgrade. Um, sure, when the X200 or whatever comes out, it'll be even a marginally better camera. But honestly, at this point, I don't really know what else I'd change about the camera. I mean, the biggest thing is I wish like a film Leica or a manual lens, it actually have a focusing knob in front. But I mean, it is what it is. It's a digital camera with autofocus. I think if a camera has autofocus, you should use it, and it's fast enough to the point where you'll capture all your decisive moments and stuff like that. But yeah, if you have any other questions about the camera, leave a comment on YouTube or whatever. I'll try to answer as many of these questions as I can. And yeah. So, but at the end of the day, buy books, not gear. Don't just throw away your money and just buy cameras that you don't need. That will complicate your life. But until next time, I'll do more of these videos on YouTube soon. But thanks for watching, guys. Peace out.